Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Healthy Business Podcast. I'm joined by the wonderful Debbie Willis, and we're going to be talking about birth, about pregnancy, about as women when we're working, how we get support on all other things, but we quite often leave pregnancy in preparation for our birth. Not necessarily to the last minute, but we don't necessarily kind of take the productive, proactive steps that maybe we should be doing. So this is going to enlighten a few of you, hopefully, if you are in that stage of life, or even if you are running a business and thinking about how we can make things a little bit more sustainable. Debbie and I have been working together about extending her business model. So it's much more future-proof, it's much more sustainable, looking at additional income streams. So this is going to be a great episode where we're going to cover two angles of different things, but really leaning into what it's like as a woman running a business when we are experiencing pregnancy, childbirth, and beyond. So Debbie, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here. I listen to your podcast all the time and I love listening to it. So I feel very privileged to be on your podcast.
Oh, absolute pleasure. I love having conversations with you generally. So it's really nice to be able to bring you on the show and kind of share some of those conversations with other people and other people who listen to this podcast as well. So before we delve into the wonderful world of birth, what I'm going to ask you first of all is a question that I ask all of my guests. So what does a healthy business mean to you? And I'd love your take on this.
And I love this question as well, because I love the way everybody comes up with something slightly different. From my point of view, having a healthy business is all about developing it in a way that works for you, and that is different for everyone. And because you are the person in your business is you have to look after yourself, and that is got to be number one. And finding a way to run your business, in a way that works for you. At the end of the day, being able to be flexible, being able to pivot your services, products to whatever those changing situations are as well, because things do change. And I think as business owners and running a healthy business, you have to be able to change. And I'm not sure I like the word pivot, but I'm going to use it. Pivot things to how it's going to work for you, because and as mums as well, if you're a mum listening to this, your kids change and your kids' needs change. And so if you're needing to look after your kids and running a business, you really need to work out how that's going to work best for you and be able to so I think a lot of it is about being able to be flexible, actually, and looking after yourself at the same time, mentally and physically. Definitely.
It's so important, isn't it? It's just, and I think as women, we like to feel like we can juggle everything and we can spin all the plates and lean into all of those things. And actually what you were talking about there, we could probably very easily interchange that business word for just running life in general, as well as during pregnancy and birth, especially if we're working up until that point as well, especially if we're first-time mums. And I think it's so interesting you said there around being open to change, because that is what life is, isn't it? As we kind of grow and do different things, but also looking after ourselves and putting that as a priority, because again, as women, we tend to be carers. We tend to be focusing on all the things around us and everybody around us, whether that's clients, customers, our children, our families, our other halves, friends. And we know where does that leave us? And I think when we're so focused on other people, actually sometimes we forget that when we look after ourselves and we put ourselves first, actually people get the best out of us rather than less of us. And I think it's a really interesting shift of not just mindset, but actually the actions that we take as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. Something that I have noticed, I mean, I've been running my own business for 11 years, it will be next month, and something that I only really noticed when I started working with you, Sarah, and noticed that, actually the more I look after myself, the better my business is, and the more I can cope with what life brings me as well, whether that's from a family personal point of view, you know, or from a business point of view. You know, if I keep into my schedule some exercise, some mindful work, mindset work, then it makes a massive difference. Yeah, it really does.
It does. And I think let's lean into that kind of business bit first then, because I think it is a big, obviously a lot of our listeners are in business and that kind of thing. And I think it's something that we can get caught up in, isn't it? That we're so driven to get the results that we're wanting to, that we prioritize that. And rather than recognizing, as you just said, that actually the more we put in for ourselves, actually the better our business quite often does. And that can be in all sorts of things. It's the physical health, it's the mental health, it's the emotional health, as well as looking at the different income streams. And I mean, your business has kind of evolved over the last couple of years, really, that we've been working together. And just, you know, rather than sort of being much more focused around your pregnancy and birth coaching and antenatal support, we've kind of brought out some different ideas and different income streams that still support those ideal clients, but actually in a slightly different way. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, so I, you know, 10, 11 years ago, I became an antenatal teacher and a hypnobirthing practitioner. And about 5 years ago, we moved house, and I kind of gained from moving house a holiday let. And I wasn't looking to get a holiday let. But when we looked at the house and fell in love with it, we thought, actually, I could do that. And I'd love to be a holiday let owner and manager. So we kind of dived in and haven't looked back, really. And so we've been running a holiday let, or I have been running a holiday let for the last kind of 5 years. And yeah, a couple of years ago, you know, and after, you know, chatting with you as well, kind of thought, wait a minute, it does make sense to kind of, I often say, marry the two together. I married the two together, my two businesses together, and birthed a new one. I'd
Yes.
quite like to say
Perfect synergy with what you do.
Yeah. So I realized that I wanted to help more women and more couples have a positive birth experience and help them to have the birth they want. And often, you know, that means expanding my kind of audience geographically, I suppose, in terms of location. And so what we realized was that if I have those couples come and stay in my holiday let and learn about how to have that positive birth experience and prepare for the birth, then it means that, you know, actually I can see couples, I can have in-person classes and in-person sessions with them, you know, even if they live 2, 3, 4 hours away, because they can come and stay in my holiday let. So yeah, so I developed baby moons, basically, but very unique baby moons that, not just baby moons to come and have a lovely romantic stay with your partner, which you will get if you come here, but on top of that, you can book in an antenatal course, a hypnobirthing course, a pregnancy and birth coaching session, whatever works for you. They're very tailored, very bespoke baby moons, and it's pretty much you know, if you want to have a massage, if you want to have a pregnancy massage, your birth partner have a massage as well, then you can book those in. And actually recently I've included an antenatal appointment with a private midwife. I mean, it's just amazing. It's an amazing, great idea. It means that you can just book in you know, an extra appointment. Nowadays you get 10-minute appointments if you're with you know, if you have an NHS midwife, you have 10-minute appointments. You only, you know, if your first pregnancy, you see them, you know, maybe a couple more times than with subsequent pregnancies, but you don't see them very much. You don't get a lot of support. So yeah, it means that you can, no matter where you are really in the UK, you can come away for a few nights and yeah, have a coaching session with me, you know, go through, if it's your pregnancy for the second or third pregnancy, then if there's some things that you know, want to have differently, want to happen differently this time, if you want to have less medical intervention, okay, let's go through some things that are going to really help you have, you know, be less likely to have medical intervention if that's what you want, help you feel more in control, help you feel less pain when you have contractions. Yeah, so it's really a kind of a tailored few days to however you want, and you get to stay in the beautiful Suffolk countryside as well, which today
stunning.
is the sun is shining. It's lovely here.
And I think, I think always one of the things I hear for any woman is that time is something that they wish they had more of.
Yeah.
And I love that this baby moon allows people to utilize the time in the most efficient way. Like they get the time with their partner before life is completely tipped on its side.
Yeah.
And they get access to you, they get access to a private midwife, all of the stuff that you have to book appointments for and have to do it in and around your work schedule.
Yep.
Actually, you've just created this really easy, simple space in a really relaxing way that allows people to do all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think, when we look at that from a sort of a business perspective, it's really drilling down into your dream client and going, actually, what's going on for these people? Time is something that they really struggle with. So how can I create something, a unique offering that allows them to have access to me and all of these different things that we know they need, but in a way that works for them? And that's why I think they've become so popular as well, because it ticks all of those boxes, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. A lot of my clients say, oh, actually, I've been looking at, booking a few nights away, booking a baby moon or something similar before the baby arrives. And a lot of them don't want to travel either. They don't want to get on the aeroplane. They want somewhere that they can easily get to. But it's still a break away from everything. So many of the couples that I work with, as you said, they are leaders in business, they're managers, in the workplace, they're really busy people. They may commute, for long distances as well. A lot of them are kind of in their late 30s, some even in their early 40s, where just life takes over, and then they become pregnant and think, right, how am I going to fit everything in? And as you say, this is an ideal scenario where they can just leave everything at home, and at the end of their 2, 3, 4 nights away, however many nights they want, they feel so much more prepared for birth. And their birth partner as well can at last feel like, actually, I know what's going to happen now. I know what kind of support I need to provide as well, depending on what happens. And they also feel like they feel like they're in a much better place as well by the end of the stay. Yeah, it's lovely. It's a lovely thing to be able to provide, and I love doing it. And I absolutely love getting the birth stories back that I get are just amazing.
I almost wish I was going to have another baby and be pregnant again and come and explore it properly.
I know.
But I think I was going to say, I think it's such a unique opportunity for you as a business owner that you have something that you're passionate about. You have this beautiful space, and you've then recognized what your dream clients need. And that's kind of where that magic happens, I think, when we're looking at income streams, is that, we get to do things how we want to, in a way that, it almost goes back to what you're talking about with your sort of healthy business analogy of actually doing things in a way that works for you. You have all of those things at your fingertips, and your dream client needs it. So let's put that together and create something that is really unique experience for them. And I know you've done that with kind of, single one-off day retreats and, other income streams that we've sort of created off the back of exploring the wonderful Pandora's box of ideas, because you don't need to do everything. There's always so many things we can do. But I think being really laser focused on the stuff that works for you, that allows you to build your business in a way that feels great, but also that feels great for the ideal clients as well, because I think that's where it makes such a difference.
Talking about the healthy business thing, I think, coupled with that is really about, something I've learned massively from working with you as well, or it's kind of reminded me about it and made me put it into place, is the whole kind of niching down your business, niching down not just your business and what you provide, but also niching down who you provide that to, who really is your ideal client. Because there's a lot of pregnant women out there, but not all of them will be wanting to come on a baby moon. Not all of them will be, as you said, I've also provide pregnancy retreat days that you can come along to for the whole day and be completely nurtured through mind and body for the day. But it's not for everybody, and but niching down to the things that you know that you do really well, that you've got all the experience and the knowledge in, but also niching down in terms of who who you focus on and who you provide that to. I think I didn't realize how important that was until I did it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think so many people do niche down in the sense of, oh, it's pregnant ladies, they're at this age, they live in this location. Yeah. Whereas I take a slightly different approach to an ideal client and niching down. And what we've been working on is actually it's the values piece. It's the type of person they are. Because as you say, not everyone is going to want to do those things. But if we're talking to all pregnant ladies at a certain age group or at a certain location, we've got to filter through that a whole load more. Whereas actually it's about understanding the type of person they are. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss.
A lot of the time I talk about the word determination with my clients, and I talk about it right from the start when I first start talking to, potential, pregnant clients that I'm going to support. And I say right from the start, it's really important that you are determined. I am determined to help you get, the birth that you want.
Yeah.
But what's really important is that you are as well. And I find that I attract actually those women and those couples who are determined. They're, as I said before, they might be, pretty high up in their business and they're quite high achievers in what they do. And they come to birth or they come to pregnancy and go, whoa,
it's a whole new world.
This whole new thing. How do I do this? And actually, the more determined you are, the more likely it is that you will get the birth you want. So I love it that those women come to me who are determined. They may have already read a book or started reading something, and I'm like, that's brilliant. Good. Take in all that information, take in all that knowledge, because it's important that you have all that. The more knowledge you have, the more prepared you are, the more likely it is you will have a positive experience. So yeah, I love working with women who kind of have similar what's the word? Similar, I can't think of the word. Values to me.
I think it's the
values and beliefs.
It's the values.
Yeah,
it really is. And I think that type of person that you're just talking about is a lot of our listeners. Where they are go-getters, they are wanting to achieve in their business or in their workspace, and they get support in lots of different areas of their lives. But actually, when it comes to the stuff for us, because they're quite often the support for other people, but when it comes to the support for ourselves, that's the bit that can feel a little bit uncomfortable, because we're like, well, no, I'm normally the person that supports everyone. I should be able to know what's going on. But pregnancy is a whole new world. Birth is a whole new world. I remember this just massive opening of vocabulary as a starting point of being like, oh my goodness, I had no idea about any of these words.
They use words like cervical dilation and effacement, when all it is opening and thinning, pretty much. Very briefly,
it's huge, isn't it?
Lots of different words where you think, do we really need to use that word? Let's change it. Let's change it to something else.
Definitely. And I think that learning curve can feel quite big if you're trying to do it on your own. And I think recognizing that support is available and getting the right support from someone who's not just had experience of having their own children and hearing, other friends' birth stories and all the rest, which can be useful, but let's be honest, can quite often not be very useful. And I think that's where someone like you comes in, of going, actually, I can acknowledge all of that, but I can tell you what really happens, or what you can expect, or how you can best prepare for the birth that you want to have. And I think just, having a positive birth is what every mum wants to have. But what that means for each mum is going to be slightly different. And the questions that they're going to have and the choices that they want to make. And none of those are wrong. And I think it's, as you said, when you get those, 10-minute NHS appointments, they're helpful. But actually, if you don't know the questions to ask, or you think of a question straight afterwards, then you're kind of stuck for a long period of time and then don't know where to go unless you go onto, Google or something like that, which probably isn't the best place either. So tell us a little bit about how you support women in pregnancy and beyond, and that kind of, so that birth journey as well. Because I think, as business owners, as women in business, we're in control of so much stuff, and we've got so many hats that we're juggling, and we're caring for other people. But actually, to have something that we can get support on from someone else who gets that is so important. And that's why I love that you call yourself a pregnancy and birth coach, because it's supporting you. It's not just to kind of, an appointment where it's like, I'm a midwife, this is how it's going to happen. Yeah. It's actually the wider piece and really focusing on you as an individual, as a person, and creating that positive birth experience you want.
Yeah. So I make sure that, whenever I support a couple, it's all about tailored support. It's very bespoke because we're all different. And I like the way you talked about, being a coach, because what I found over the years is that I'm increasingly becoming more and more someone who is more of a counselor or a therapist sometimes during pregnancy, because as you said, we haven't come across this birth or pregnancy thing before. There's lots of new things, lots of information as well. I had a client recently who said she was so overwhelmed by all the information, and what I managed to do for her was actually condense it down and go, actually, these are your options, and you have got options. You've always got options during birth. You got 3 different options, 4 different options. And she's like, thank you, that's what I needed to know. And we also go through how to make those decisions. Okay, so you might have lots of different options and you need to make some decisions. So how do we make that decision? What different tools can we use to help us make a decision that's evidence-based, that's the right decision for you and for your baby? So when we have sessions together, it's all about, there might be some key things that we need to go through about how the mind and body work. But at the end of our sessions, we will have what I often call a toolbox of different tools and techniques to help you, no matter what kind of birth happens on the day, no matter what kind of birth you're planning, no matter what kind of birth happens on the day. Because it might be that you want a home water birth. It might be that that you want an epidural. It might be that you end up having an unplanned cesarean, but it doesn't matter, because you've done all the preparation. You know what your birth partner wants to do if it does end up in that unplanned cesarean. What different tools you're going to use, or different techniques that you can try if those pain levels get really high, because we go through a lot about how to reduce pain during labor. So my sessions are really tailored to each individual mum or woman and couple, because they're all different. But at the same time, because I've worked with so many now, I've worked with, I think it's between 300 and 400, I've lost count, I need to count up probably, but I've worked with a lot of couples now, and there are some key themes that come up. So I kind of know some of the fears that they have, the fear around, baby's health, mum's health, the fear of being out of control, the fear of the pain. So there's some key things that we can go through, and then we can tailor the solution to exactly what works for them. And then it's all about practice. Because I say, it's all very well that you've, come to some sessions with me, that you've, booked onto my course, but this determination thing means that, you do need to do some practice. You do need to go. I do give my couples homework, because it's really important that they don't just go, well, I've done the sessions, I'm going to get a lovely birth now. It's not about that. They need to go home, do the practice the techniques, listen to hypnosis, the more you practice, the more you listen to the hypnosis, the more effective the techniques are going to be come the birth. So I check in, because so my courses are bespoke, and they include lots as well. So as part of my bespoke hypnobirthing course, for example, every couple will get a catch-up call, a few weeks before the birth. So I'll check in on them every now and again and go, how are you getting on? Because different things come up as well. They'll go to a midwife appointment, and there'll be something new the midwife will bring up. Then maybe they're suggesting induction because she's 37 years old, but that's it, only because she's 37 years old and labeled as advanced maternal age. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what your options are, because you always have options. I
love that. And I think it's having the confidence to explore that, because I think sometimes we see the medical profession especially as that voice of authority, and rightly we should do, but actually I think there's also that opportunity to question and challenge, but not in a kind of a negative way of just going, well, what other things could we do, or if this happened, what would that mean? And I think it's having the confidence to ask those questions, or even know how to phrase those questions, which, you know, is where you come in from, that support of going, actually, when I'm right in the middle of this birthing situation, something goes off plan, which, let's be honest, nothing really ever goes to plan, does it? And I think it's you know, it's having the plan that doesn't meet quite the plan, and that what happens after that. And I mean, I remember my husband and I having like a little secret code word of, if everything went completely wrong, that we'd use this, and we'd be like, right, okay, this goes to plan C. And it gave us confidence to just know that we were in control of what was going to happen, even if the worst happened. And I think it's it's very rarely that happens, but I think sometimes we feel like the worst is happening when we go off that original plan.
Yeah.
So having that confidence to go, okay, well, if in this instance happens, what would I do then? And if you haven't had those conversations beforehand, or you haven't practiced having those conversations, or challenged each other in that moment of going, is this really what you want to have? And but being guided with your support on how to have those conversations as well, I think is really, really key.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key bits of homework that my couples get is about having conversations, communicating with each other is one of the most important things for them to do, so that when they get into that moment, that thing that's happening during labor, rather than them trying to have a conversation about it and about what the options are when you're in labor, when she's having full-blown strong contractions, actually, we've already talked about this. We talked about this weeks ago, and we know what our options are if this thing did happen, and it is happening. So, and birth partner can say, it's okay, I know exactly what we want to happen here, I know exactly what she wants, because we've talked about it like 3-4 weeks ago or a month ago or whatever, and makes it so much easier and so much simpler. And I love the way that you just talked about confidence and control, because something I find a lot with the couples I work with, or the women that I work with, is that they very much love to feel in control and be in control of things, and then they get pregnant and birth comes along, and it's like, oh, I can't control that. How do I control that? How do I control that? And really breaking that down, the best way for you to feel more in control of a situation is by knowing more about that thing. So the more knowledge you can take on, the more preparation you can do, but especially in terms of education, the more you know about that thing, the more in control about it you will feel. And that goes for anything, not just pregnancy and birth. And so,
it really does.
So you can help yourself feel more in control in the birth room just by learning about what's going on. What will my body be going through? How is my body designed? And it's designed really, really well for birth, but learning about why your body does certain things and why your mind does certain things as well during birth, and how there's this amazing connection between your mind and your body during birth, will make a really big and positive difference to how in control you feel and how much of a positive experience you have at the end of the day. Because
I think you're right. I think on the flip side of that, it's the uncertainty, it's the unknown that leads to overwhelm, that leads to fear, that leads us to making decisions that we might not be 100% aligned with, but we do it because we're in that moment and we feel like we have to. And I think as you say, just having the control comes from the knowledge, because even if, whatever you find out and whatever your knowledge is, you can make grounded decisions. You can make decisions based on fact rather than the emotional stuff. And let's be honest, pregnancy is emotional at the best of times, right? Hormones play havoc, and then that does have a natural impact on partners as well. And I think it's having your questions answered, having the knowledge, or having access to the knowledge that gives you that confidence, that's where the control comes from, I think. And I think sometimes control can feel a bit like a negative word, but actually I think in this space it's just it's having the confidence to make decisions, to know what feels good for you, what feels good for you as a partner, as a couple, in that birth experience, up until that point, at the labor point, like whatever that is, the control comes from that confidence. And I think they're almost really intertwined, because no one wants to go into that space feeling fearful, feeling uncertain about it, because there's so many other things that surprise us.
Yep.
you know, add to the learning curve once baby's actually here.
Mm.
But that is a bit that you can control and feel confident in as much as you can do.
Yeah. So I really help my couples really work on those fears that they might have that are going to affect their confidence. And, you know, we haven't really talked about the kind of the hypno bit of it, you know, the hypnosis bit, but really just very briefly, the hypnosis bit is just one bit of a big toolbox of different tools that I support couples with, but that they can take to the birth with them. And the hypnosis bit is really twofold. It's about switching off your conscious mind, because we don't need our conscious mind when we birth babies, and also changing our subconscious mind and being able to change and maybe kind of reduce some of those fears that we might have, maybe change the way we feel contractions, change our reactions when something happens that it may be a negative thing, but actually we can change our reaction to that. You know, maybe someone different walked into the birth room, and, you know, let's make sure our reaction is one of, oh, I'm going to meet my baby soon, rather than who's this person, why are they walking in, and what does this mean for my birth? Yeah, let's change our reaction to it. So the hypnosis can be really powerful and can really transform the way both our mind and our body works during labor and birth. And yeah, I think transformation is quite a good word for how hypnosis works, because it works on our subconscious. And it's difficult to work on our subconscious when our conscious mind is always awake and always alert and always going, but what if, and this person told me that. And you mentioned about negative birth stories earlier on, and we get fed so much negative stuff around birth, and it doesn't have to be like that. The view of many couples that I work with when they first come to work with me, I first start supporting them, is that birth is traumatic and birth is painful. And actually, a lot of that view is really skewed because of what's been fed in over the past 20, 30, 40 years. You know, it's, you know, oh, but Rachel on Friends looked like she was in pain, you know, and my friend told me about the birth that their brother-in-law, you know, sister-in-law had, and it was really awful. And the thing is, we want to tell the exciting stories, and the exciting birth stories are often, or most of the time, the negative and traumatic ones. So it just means that all the time we're getting fed into our brains and into our conscious and subconscious minds that birth is negative, birth is painful, birth is traumatic. And you know what? It's not true. Not all births are like that. My births were fine. My births were boring births. I often talk about how they were just boring. My husband even fell asleep during one of my labours. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh, and I think, you know, and I think what's brilliant about that is that boring is actually the most brilliant thing, isn't it? Like, it doesn't, you know, I think we've been fed this narrative around, we need a story, we need to create something, you know, we live in a world where, you know, the media loves a story. They love the kind of, you know, rags to riches, negative to, you know, build a celeb up, and then 2 minutes later they're tearing them back down again. Like, we see it all the time. So we're surrounded by these narratives as to stories have to be hard, they have to be difficult, whereas actually, you know, the reality is that normal can actually be brilliant, or not normal, boring can be brilliant. Maybe there's a new catchphrase in that. Boring can be brilliant.
Boring can be amazing.
yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it comes down to this proactiveness around knowledge, about seeking that and getting the support that feels good for you. And I think, even you touched on there around hypnobirthing and sort of hypnotherapy, and I think, you know, again, the media spins stories and what actually that is. And I think, you know, busting the myths around that, it's not going on a stage and dancing like a chicken. Like, it's actually just taking control of our mind, our thoughts, and being in that moment, to feel calm, to feel positive, to feel excited about birth. That's really where we want to get your clients to, and get women to feel generally, because it's so powerful when that happens.
Yeah. And often when I get feedback from the couples that I work with, you know, they'll say things like, I actually now feel excited about the birth. Whereas when they first come to me, it's often, oh, I'm worried about this, I'm anxious about that, I'm scared of this. And And so to hear them say, I'm excited for it, and to hear and to have those birth stories come back and go, it was fine, or, you know, it was great, or you wouldn't believe what happened and it was amazing. It's just wonderful. I love it.
Oh, it feels like a really good point to be sharing all of your details as to where people can find you if they're like, do you know what? This sounds amazing. This is exactly what I need right now. Where can people find you or connect with you?
So my website is probably the best first kind of stage, I suppose, which is betterbirthandbaby.co.uk. I have a lovely Facebook group as well that I'm going to do some free training in, and that is the Better Birth Hypnobirthing Hub. And the other thing I want to mention is that I often forget to mention to people is that I do free video calls, free no obligation video calls with anyone who wants to kind of explore, you know, having my support a bit further, you know, wants to talk about, you know, okay, what the different bits in a baby moon, or just want to talk about, you know, having some coaching sessions with me, or booking my course. Let's have a, you know, a 20-minute chat about, you know, okay, how is it going to help you, and, you know, able you to ask any questions as well. So you can get direct access to my calendar and my diary from my website as well by just clicking on booking a call. So yeah,
amazing.
And I love talking about birth,
value in those sessions. Yeah, and I think we need to have these conversations more and more, because, you know, they affect not just the women that are going through them, but also the partners that are experiencing it as well. It does affect everybody, and it's a really important conversation to have, whether you are running your own business and taking time out and you need to have those additional income streams that we've kind of been building with you and having that sustainable business. But actually, I think just getting support as a woman who finds themselves that they're pregnant, or it's a planned one, and experiencing that control and confidence through that process and into labor as well. It's absolutely possible to have that calm and excitement that you want within that journey as well. I feel like we could talk all day about birth, so thank you for joining me.
I love talking about birth. I can definitely talk about it all day.
Oh, well, so if anyone is listening to this and thinking, oh my goodness, I just want to have a quick chat with Debbie and explore what could be possible, and you've heard all of these sort of, you know, negative stories, and you want to find out more about working with Debbie, or even just about her amazing baby moons that she runs in the gorgeous Suffolk countryside, then do connect with her. She's on the socials at Better Birth and Baby. You've obviously got her website. We'll make sure that all of the links go into the show notes as well, so you can come and find her as well. But thank you for listening to today's episode. I will be back next week. But Debbie, thank you for joining me and sharing all of your wonderful words of wisdom and reassurance that both running a business as well as preparing for birth can be almost one and the same experience in a positive way.
Thank you, Sarah.